I'd like to call the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners special meeting to order. Reverend Hines, would you please offer prayer?
Eternal God, our Father, we give thanks for your loving kindness and your tender mercy. We ask for your blessing upon our minds and our hearts as we consider the things that make our county a better place in which to live, that we might serve those constituents that we love, and we want you to bless them, that we might share together to make our county a good place in which to live. For Christ's sake, amen.
Then in consideration of adoption of fiscal year 2020-2021 budget ordinance. Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Presented for your consideration is the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2020-2021. The proposed ad valorem tax rate for FY21 is 95 cents per $100 value, which is no change from the current year. 1 cent generates approximately $350,000. The county's proposed budget for FY21 totals $78,784,048, which includes enterprise funds, water and sewer and solid waste. The proposed budget is an increase of $1,953,172, or 2.5 cents from the original budget of the current year. At your direction, we have added $350,000 to the sheriff's budget for pay increases, as well as $50,000 for repairs at the courthouse. I've also made a few other cuts across several departments from the previously proposed budget, which were reviewed with the budget committee.
Would you tell us about that?
Yes, sir. You have at your place a spreadsheet that lists by the department and the budget line what those changes have been. You will see as you go down the line, there are a number of reductions that were made in line items from what was presented to you at your last meeting. In some cases, there are budget increases, as I mentioned, for example, increases to the sheriff's salary and related line items, as well as the addition of $50,000 to capital outlay for repairs at the courthouse. You'll see that the net change is a reduction of $118,432 from the budget that was presented to you at your last meeting.
Was fund balance of that, how did we make up the difference? I mean, we approved $400,000 in that budget.
Yes, sir. And then there were minus some of these reductions, which I've gone back and sat and I've gone back.
That's the reason the other money's coming from fund balance.
Yes, sir. Correct. Well, it's actually a slight reduction from what we presented as fund balance appropriation at your last meeting.
So may I interject those
Yes.
points? The budget committee had a chance to sit down with Mr. Evans and go over this, and then incorporated in this addition. I commend the staff. I know Mr. Evans and Mr. Johnson and others. They sharpened their pencils and found savings that they had not seen in the first pass. Some things that might have been an example is that we may have reduced costs and salaries in certain areas. I don't know if it was salary, maybe something else, but we didn't capture the FICA tax rate.
Right.
So that savings was captured when they went back and fine-tuned the budget. So I don't think we had to increase the fund balance.
No, sir. In fact, the fund balance appropriation would be down slightly from what was presented at the last.
So the fund balance appropriation actually went down. They went back and found more savings in this new budget proposal.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, sir. Also would like to point out, and this was discussed with the budget committee as well, in the proposed budget, as you recall from your budget work session, my recommendation related to outside agencies was to keep all of those at flat funding from current year's appropriation, except where we are required to do differently based on statutory or other requirements. That includes Braswell Memorial Library. And so you'll remember that we share operational costs with Nash County and the city of Rocky Mount. Braswell Library had requested a 3% increase from all three entities. The request from the county is $223,356. My recommendation is $194,962, which is what we have appropriated this current year. Again, trying to hold all outside agencies flat, considering budget considerations, impact of COVID-19 on our revenues. However, since that meeting, I've learned that both Nash County and the city of Rocky Mount do have planned to give that increase. However, the agreement is if all of us would have to give the increase. So what I just asked that you consider, and I shared this at the Braswell Library board meeting last week, I believe it was, is that at your budget now to approve the 194,962, which is current year's appropriation, and then let us come back and take another look at it in July as the picture comes a little bit clearer as to the impact of COVID-19. And so summarize all of that, I know that was a lot. Summarize that, I'm still recommending holding flat funding for Braswell Library, but ask if you would to consider, let's come back and take another look at it in July as we had a chance to see a little bit better on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
I hear no objection to that. We always can come back with it.
I had a question.
Yes.
Did they have a reason for asking for the additional 3%?
Cost of living increases for their sector, primarily as a bulk of it. So I recommend that you adopt the budget ordinance for FY '21 as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions, comments on the budget before we get a motion on
When we talked about the courthouse, I thought we had come closer to what they were requesting.
We have, may I interject? The money coming from the federal authorities for COVID-19, we'll use some of that and this 50, that close together.
this? I think that based on our conversation, we were there, okay? So and yeah, based on the conversation, and Mr. Evans could add those other things based on how they fit, how they qualify COVID-19 money.
That's right. There are a number of things they requested that will qualify under the coronavirus relief funds that we have. So that takes that off the burden, some of the burden off of county dollars. The $50,000 would be to go down as far down that list as we can, right? That will remain.
It appeared based on the conversation of the board that there were no issues that proceed with correcting those courthouse issues. Was that correct? Sheriff, did you want to address it? Did you?
Just walk in, sorry for the delay.
I said, we get ready to approve this budget. Did you want to?
Yes.
Right.
I'm sorry for the delay, guys. Good morning. I was delayed. Most of you guys understand we had a double homicide on Pine Tops over the weekend. So right as I'm going to walk out, I had people just want to speak with the sheriff. So I had to make the decision, stand in and hear this information. I got to get right back to the sheriff's office and come and speak on the budget. I'm grateful for, I don't know what the numbers are, what was voted on. I'm grateful for anything for our people, for your people at the sheriff's office. Tremendous group. In today's climate of law enforcement, it is tough and it's getting tougher for us. And I don't know what the budgetary numbers are. I haven't seen anything. So I don't know. But I'm losing another great deputy this Friday to private practice. And all I'm asking is not to put us anywhere above anybody else, but we've got to stay competitive. It's not going to get any easier for me or anyone else. I'm prayerful that we can make some progress in here today. Prayerful. At the end of the day, we do it all, from cardiac arrest to saving lives, to not getting the mental help that we need to see what we saw over the weekend. I get it, I understand. I will say this, I do understand that your jobs are hard. And we are first responders at its best. Consider us, please. And people say time and time again, that's what you guys took an oath to do. Guess what, people? They're walking away from the job. And when law enforcement walk away from the job, we're in trouble. We protect the sheep, and a lot of us in this room can't protect yourself. We do it. There's a lot of power in this room. but a lot of us in this room can't protect ourselves. And law enforcement across the world, and especially in Edgecombe County, I'm begging you guys, we need it. I don't beg often. 940,000 what I requested, and it's just to get us at the bottom in the area. These guys deserve it. I think it would be an honor for you guys to show them that you really care. Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay. I had to make the decision to talk about this murder, and they popped up on me last minute and be here for this. But I don't know the numbers, Chairman. I don't know the figures. I walked in trouble.
The figure that had been approved in our budget was an additional $350,000 that we stated last. It was not the amount that you requested, but it was certainly much greater than it had already been put into the budget.
Well, plus 2%, so it's really about $470,000.
Right. So, any comments related to the sheriff's comments?
It's a start. I'm grateful. Don't think that I'm not. I'm grateful and disappointed at the same time. But I am thankful.
And we appreciate you being thankful, and we certainly are making a very strong efforts to
Yes, sir.
to do the request to get all our people, including our deputies, to where we thought we at least will not lose them based on salaries. Okay, we think the sheriff's department is doing an excellent job. We support you fully over there, and an indication of passing this budget does not say that we don't. But it says that we have a fiduciary responsibility, and that we have to look at the revenue
I understand.
and that we get, and based on the recommendations of our staff, where it might be best put. It's not that we don't know how revenue is going to come out this year, but we certainly can continue to look at, as revenue increases, some of the requests that you made.
Right. And before I take my seat, let me tell you something that we are really battling about. We have some employees, and this may trickle over into the county, but I have witnessed this. We have some employees that take a seat and get unemployment versus staying for these low salaries that we have here in the sheriff's office. And so that's a battle for us. What are we contributing to? That they are willing to want me to release them because they'll make more money sitting at home than they will at the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Office. These are the battles that we've got to face and we've got to consider, because I think we're contributing to a much greater problem. So I understand that, Chairman. Thank you guys so much. Grateful and disappointed at the same time. We will continue to fight because, like I said, I see the hard work from a leadership and I guess a CEO position. We fight for you guys, and my guys love coming to work at the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Office. So thank you so much. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Any comments from the board?
I would like to say that that there's a major policy shift, that salaries are being increased to one department more so than any one other department, and I consider it a major victory that we've been able to push that and collectively agree that that is the right course at this time. Your comments about unemployment and it's better, they're asking to be unemployed to receive a higher benefit. That's a federal. That's a federal level that will expire in July under current legislation. So that is out of our hands.
Yeah, I know how they handle them, so they can know the mindset.
Right.
Mindset was
They'll want to come back.
Yeah. It's just that mindset, even to lose them for 2 or 3 months, dealing with that mindset of, I'm gonna see, you don't have to get into it. It's the mindset of it, what I'm trying to
It permeates all jobs in our region.
Right. So I am grateful and disappointed sometimes. So I'm thankful for that, and I understand it's a major victory, so that's why I'm extremely grateful. Okay? Thank you for that. Those that. Anything else?
Question?
I make a motion that we approve. I'm sorry.
That's a second, what? Was that a second?
Sure can be.
Okay. Now go ahead.
We just trying to do the best we can.
Understand, Commissioner, understand.
Always thank you.
Understand.
Yes, sir.
Blessings.
As they said, what we do today, should things have a very big shift, you never know what could happen in the next few months. We've got to see what's going to come in, what has to go out. We won't say this is the end because we just don't know.
Yes.
I'm praying God is gonna shift the atmosphere.
I love that statement, and I'm praying the same thing. Thank you for that.
You don't let me pray.
And on let's pray. But it starts from the head, Commissioner, so I need you to pray, Chairman.
They don't let me. I got my chaplain, and they won't let me pray.
I need the chairman to start praying. Thank you, guys. Anything else?
You won't let me know.
Sheriff, thank you for what you and your
Thank you,
people
sir.
do every day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank y'all so much. Y'all be safe, okay? Thank y'all.
No questions, all in favor, let me know by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none. The 2020-2021 budget order is hereby passed. Approval of budget amendment, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. There are a couple that I would like to point out. Number one, you'll see the numbers at the top right corner of each budget amendment. I do want to show you that this is regarding additional COVID-19 funds that are coming specifically to the health department and cover some of their costs there. So that's good news. We're getting some additional funds. So that will help us to allow that $1.08 million we got in CRF funds to go a little bit further in other things. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, budget amendment, it will be 13.5. Would like to just note here that you'll see appropriating revenues for sales tax Article 42 for the remainder of this fiscal year. This particular article, percentage of that goes to each of the school systems, and we got more revenues in that particular sales taxes, most of the sales tax revenues this year than originally budgeted. So we have to amend that budget because then that portion of the money goes out to those two school systems respectively. Number 22. I just want to point out, this is regarding JCPC funds. You'll recall that the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funds that we get each year is $216,000 and some change. We have to provide a 10% match. That match is allocated across each of the line items under the JCPC, including administration, JCPC, FICA. Originally, we did not appropriate enough match in those two particular lines, and so we're having to make this amendment. The total match requirement overall is $21,630. So, and that is a 2,947 general fund appropriation. So I wanted in particular to point that out. Those were the three that I just wanted to draw your attention to. I'm happy to answer questions about any others. Most of these, as you'll see, if not all the rest of these, are just the general amendments of budget lines from one to another within the departments before the end of the fiscal year.
Is there a motion to approve? Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let me know by vote sign aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved.
Next is regarding our hazard compensation policy. At your May meeting, you approved a revision to our personnel policy to add a hazard compensation provision. That policy gives me three options to consider for compensation when an employee performs hazardous duties or performs their normal duties in unusually hazardous conditions, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. The three options include up to $500 per pay period, no more than 2 pay periods, or up to 25% pay differential, no more than 2 pay periods, or comp time at 1.5 times for no more than 2 pay periods. To determine which option to use and which employees should receive compensation, I created 3 categories of risk, which are highest risk, that being staff who had no modification to their schedule or work assignment to lower their risk, and in a position with regular and close public interaction. The second category is relatively moderate risk. These are staff who had no modification to their schedule or work assignment, but in a position with little to no interaction with the public. And third is the lowest risk. These will be staff in a position where measures were already taken to mitigate their risk. For example, working from home, working on rotating schedules, being extended emergency leave or extended FMLA. My plan was to give the maximum allowed of either option 1 or 2 for those highest risk, and half of option 1 or 2 to those in the moderate risk, and no additional compensation for those in the lowest risk category, being that those employees have already received either emergency or administrative leave for their time off. After having our department heads place staff into one of these 3 categories, I quickly realized that using the percentage pay differential would not be the fairest way to employ this policy for the current COVID-19 risk, since staff members are facing the same amount of relative risk per the category they fall in regardless of their salary. Therefore, the hazard pay bonus is the more appropriate option. I also realized that for those in the highest risk to receive $500 per pay period, and those in the relatively moderate risk to receive $250 per pay period is not, in my opinion, commensurate with the risk they are taking. With that in consideration, and finding the cost is an eligible expense under the Coronavirus Relief Fund, I recommend that you revise the policy to increase the $500 limit to $1,000 and authorize me to implement this for 4 pay periods. One last thing I realized I forgot to put in my memo. I also asked if you were to consider to make this policy retroactive to when you enacted the state of emergency, which would have been March the 20th. And if you do that, then I will go back to March 21st, which would be the beginning of that pay period, to start that hazard compensation.
Is the budget committee saying this, or this is the first time?
No, we discussed this in the committee, and I think we 3 were all in agreement with it.
Yeah.
Then the only, you just raised the highest risk, $500. You raising the $500, you're not raising anything.
Ready for the.
Right, so it would raise the flat hazard pay bonus to a limit of $1,000. Right now it's $500. If you do that, then those at the highest risk would get the $1,000 per pay period. Those in moderate risk would get $500. And again, those in the lowest risk would not get any additional compensation because they have already received either emergency leave or administrative leave for their time off.
You know what I'm saying? With this in consideration, the final cost is I recommend you revise the policy to increase the $500 limit to $1,000.
Yes, sir.
To me, it does not read where we
Just
said,
250 to 500.
it does not read where to take the 250 to 500.
So that's not original. So what the policy does right now, it sets a ceiling of $500. So as you have already adopted, I have authority to choose anywhere in there up to $500.
So this just gives you the authority, you still can revise any of these. to
That's
where-
right. It would just put now that ceiling from $500 to $1,000.
Can you list the numbers? And took care of it?
Yeah, so if you turn over a couple of pages, you'll see there a spreadsheet. And what that shows you is, you'll see the 3 columns. The first hazard bonus up to $500. So currently that hazard bonus is limited to $500. If I implement it as it stands, we're giving $500 to those at highest risk, $250 to those at moderate risk. That's what the total cost would be. If instead I gave the pay differential to 25%, as I just mentioned, I don't plan to do at this point, it would be, the total cost would be $162, $179. And the reason I feel like that's not the fairest way, because when we looked at all of them, you got some employees that are in the same category of risk that based on their salaries, some would get over $1,000, some close to $2,000, or some may have gotten $500, but they're still facing the same relative risk, which is why I don't plan to use that particular option. But if you approve this recommended change and we revise this up to $1,000, so that being $1,000 for those in the highest risk, $500 in the moderate risk, this is what the total cost per pay period would be. I do want to make sure you understand also that, this could change from one pay period to another. We've had some staff that maybe originally were in low risk because the building was closed, or maybe in moderate risk, but now that some offices like collections and DMV are open to the public, and that was starting June the 1st, their relative risk now has changed. And beginning June 1st, they would go into a new risk category.
So we really could have some lower classification of employees receiving $1,000,
It could, depending on.
depending upon the
That's
risk.
right.
What else are we talking about? How many are you talking about in the $1,000 category, and how many in the $500 category?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can certainly let you know.
And I think one of the things he stated is that changes too.
It could change, that's right, depending on their particular
You
situation.
know, that assignments.
And just to give you some examples of those that would be in the highest risk, again, that would be employees that even after we shut buildings down, they still were in a position where they had regular and ongoing contact with the public. And because of their position, their schedule could not be changed. So like sheriff's deputies, our folks that work out at the landfill and the convenience sites. A few other examples not coming to mind right now. So that would be the type of positions that would be in the highest risk category. Also, as I noted, let me point this out, this does include some part-time folks. So a part-time person who is in the highest risk would not get the $1,000, they would get $500 because they work part-time.
But the bottom line is the maximum was 2,000, the maximum was 1,000 per employee. And it's covered by the COVID funds.
Yes, sir, it is.
We're looking roughly $460,000 at the current plan over four pay periods.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Moving on.
Next is regarding contracts with Harvey's and Ingram, our auditing firm. Enclosed for your consideration is an amendment to the current contract with Harvey's and Ingram, our auditing firm, which would revise the due date of the delivery of the audit. Also included is the contract to begin July 1 to audit our financials for FY fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. I recommend that you approve the contract amendment and contract as presented. I do want to point out that you will recall, obviously, we are way past the time that we normally would have our audit completed. You may recall some months ago, we discussed with you at a meeting, there were some issues that we were working through in some reconciling items to be able to finalize, to reconcile our accounts, and therefore to be able to get a final trial balance to the auditor, which we had some delays, which we had discussed some time back. Then later on top of that, the auditing firm's inability to be able to come on site after the COVID-19 pandemic. Their employees are working remotely from their home, which has caused some delays as well. They will be back. They will have a team member that will be back here tomorrow, in fact. And so our goal is to finish it by the end of the month. You'll see in the contract that they did put a completion date, July 31st. I certainly take full responsibility of the delay in this. We are working very hard to make sure that next year's audit gets off to a much quicker and cleaner start with those reconciling the bank accounts, which they are caught up now. And I believe that we'll be able to accomplish that. I also believe that you will see some changes and improvements in the audit findings, which you've seen in previous year, once the audit is complete. So I'm happy to answer any question that you might have about it.
LGC is aware.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you're doing that. My LGC meeting 2 meetings ago, the auditor has put out some new stipulations. It's going to be very, very essential that we get a jump on them. So I made sure I forwarded it to Eric so that his folks will already know what we need before the last minute.
That's right.
Because it's going to be a serious change from what they used to.
And just as a note, I will say that the LGC has already given an extended deadline for the next audit. It's usually due in October. They have extended that to January, I believe, so it'll be January of 21. They're extending that for all units of local government because they understand the challenges of completing these audits in light of the pandemic.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Next on the agenda is Edgecombe Community College Board of Trustees. We have a letter from the chairman recommending that we reappoint Mr.
Carl Warren.
Carl Warren. Is there a motion?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Appointment, update on the census.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have Ms. Bernadette Richards, who's here, representative, has been working with us for several months now on the census. As she's making her way, I will point out, you'll see in your packet what the response rates are, both for the county as a whole, and then there's a copy for each of our municipality, and you'll see it varies. We certainly need to continue to really encourage everybody to participate in the census.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As mentioned, my name is Bernadette Richards, and I'm assigned to Edgecombe County, and I've been working with Edgecombe County for quite a while as it pertains to the U.S. Census. What I'm doing is I'm trying to implore your assistance in terms of increasing the response rate for several towns within Edgecombe County. Conedo, they have a very low response rate. It's actually, possibly by now, it's about maybe 9.0. And what I did is I've actually attempted to meet with their mayor, and that was somewhat challenging. However, Jesse Pettaway, who is a commissioner within that area, I spoke with him, and we weren't actually able to determine a strategy in terms of executing in that area to increase the rate. I also met with Mr. Harrison of Speed, and that was successful. And I think what is the issue is the zip code are not accurate to the locations. And as a result of that, residents apparently are reluctant to respond. Take for instance in Speed, Mr. Harrison noted that the zip code was Tarboro. And also for Conedo, when I entered it into our system, the zip code came up as Speed. And what I've explained to him is that in that response, in the survey, it allows you to make that correction. And they had no knowledge. They apparently don't have any knowledge of that because once they see the zip code, that's it. So,
How is there a way for it to get correct?
in your response, you put in your address.
I hear you.
And that makes, and you put in the correct zip code, which allows the census to make the correction.
I hear you, but I'm asking you another question. The other question is there a way that this product can get, it appears that you send the right zip code is not assigned.
They're receiving the zip code on the envelope with that's. First, let me go back and explain this. For areas that do not receive their mail by their place of residence, the physical place of residence, they actually have what we call update leave. And enumerators are actually leaving a hard copy at their door, and with that, they have to respond. And what I'm saying is that that address, in the address, the envelope, it has apparently has an incorrect zip code.
So they won't touch. And my question is, now, Princeville does not have its own zip code.
Yeah.
They share the Tarver zip code, 27886. So that's why I was looking at this low number for Princeville, wondering how would you change that if they don't actually have a independent zip code?
What we do is when they again, and I know that because I actually have had events in Princeville, and when I entered it, it came up, they shared that zip code.
Right.
So what I did is that we have an option that it's actually, you accept what the system gives you, or you placed what is actually you enter, which I will put Princeville, and it'll turn it over to Tarboro, but then I have an option to actually make that necessary change. And Ms. Knight, Glenda Knight, the town manager, and I, and our geographer, had a very extensive conversation in regards to that. And what he said to her is that the census tract does not actually look basically at zip codes, it's more so on the maps. And that's what we need to be concerned about, based on the map and not the zip code itself.
But it seems to me what's important is also the zip code get counted with it. It should still get counted in the county.
Yeah, it's actually a part of the county.
But if we get counted in the county, it doesn't, the zip code does not make a difference.
We have what's called census tract.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? So that's also within, you have a census tract within a county. That is based on location. But what we want residents to know is that in actuality, the zip code doesn't matter because it's based on the map and based on what was made available from the county GIS to US Census to the US Census Bureau. But again, it is apparent that for some reason residents are not responding as a result of the zip code that's on the envelope, which makes it doesn't make a difference. And it allows them, when they respond, it allows them to make that correction. Because there's a cell that's in there that asks your address. Mr. Harrison, what he said he'll do, as a matter of fact, when I visited him, he himself did not respond to the survey. And then when I showed him first of all, how quick it was and how easy it is, and when I showed him the cell, in terms as to the changes that he could make to reflect speed, he then said that what he was going to do as a result, I think he said it's only like a small number of houses within that area. He was actually going to do it door to door to encourage the residents to respond. But as I said, as it pertains to Conita, it was somewhat of a challenge there. But Ms. Knight did mention that they have an event this weekend, and they will use that also as a means of trying to get their residents to respond. But in addition to that, we have McCleskfield, and they also do have a low response rate. It might be at 16.1 now. Pine Tops have a low response rate, and Princeville. As it pertains to Leggett and Tarboro,
Y'all look at Leggett now.
and Tarboro, they're doing well. They're doing well.
Doing well.
So basically that's my reason
And
for
see,
being
Leggett
here.
doesn't have its own zip code either.
But they're doing well.
That's why I don't understand it, because they're just like Princeville. They don't have their own zip code. They're 27886 as well.
When they go in, their address is attached to a map address, which is within their town boundaries.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out, with your assistance, so I can implore you to develop some strategies in terms of encouraging these residents in these low response rate areas to respond to the survey.
Question. These things, they're not, they can't be sent out through the utility bills, or are we sending them out through?
We sent a flyer sometime back with our utility bills. It's been 2-3 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, encouraging people to participate. We certainly can do that again.
So I guess I'm asking, we can't send them through utility bills?
No, not the survey.
Oh, no. It's a federal operation.
Okay.
And as I said before, they do not send it through, the servers are not sent through the mail to the PO boxes. It goes to physical addresses. Hence, we had enumerators that they actually drop it off at each resident.
Yeah.
The physical addresses.
I just don't know if it would help if we sent them a specific notice, letting them know that they would receive it by such a date, and this will work, you know, any.
And maybe to let them know that, you know, to disregard the concerns they may have as it pertains to the zip codes, and they could make the correction within that survey.
Can you do that?
Because it's a cell.
Yes, sir.
We will do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Evans
Can
can do
I
that.
get a contact number for you?
Sure, it's 678-938-9159, and my name is Bernadette Richards.
Okay, because I'm gonna check, like, part of Canita's in my district.
Okay,
See how I
yeah.
can work with some of their folks too.
Oh, I greatly will appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Is there anything else to come before this board? Anybody? Hearing none? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So good.
Discussion? All in favor, let it be known by the vote of aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, thank you for your time and effort. And who did this?